Welcome to the Bret Boone podcast. I'm your host, Bret Boone, and today I'm getting to catch up with an old Reds teammate of mine. He was a two-time All-Star in 2007. He was the NL Comeback Player of the Year, and most importantly, he is my inside source on the world of wrestling, which I know nothing about. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the program, Dmitri Young. Dmitri, thanks for coming on.
Hey, thank you there, Booney. How's everything going with you?
Everything's good. How about you? You're looking a little gray. You got your full head of hair. You got the cornrows rocking.
Hey, this ain't great, man. We grew up in the Chrome generation. This is Chrome right here.
Chrome. Oh, I like it. Chrome. That's a good twist. Um, we're talking off camera. I wanted to get caught up with you on this. A few years ago, I saw you at the combine. They did one of the first ones down here in San Diego. I was a part of it. It was interesting to see, different than when I was coming up. When you were coming up, they're headed towards more the NFL uh, way of doing things. Where us, it was just kind of draft us and we'll see what happens. Um, my question to you is, um, I was a fifth round pick. You were the first overall pick in the first round. Your brother was a 1-1 Delman. Um, when you were at the combine recently, and I believe it was in Arizona,
Yes.
Arizona, with going through what you went through, what was your advice for those kids?
Funny you say that, Brett, but let me correct you. I was the fourth pick overall in 91.
No, that's what I
My
said.
brother,
I said fourth pick overall. He
I,
was
oh, I
one
thought you
one,
said,
right?
oh, yeah. You know what? I'm 50 now. I'm getting old. but but anyway, I was in the cage area, and the kids would come through the cage and get their swings in prior to going out on the field. And basically putting on a show for the rest of their lives, basically. So they'll walk in. A lot of them had that little, you know, I'm cool and, who are you kind of deal. And I quickly corrected, hey, come over here, introduce yourself. My name is Dmitri Young. I'm a 13-year veteran, former number one pick, fourth pick overall in the 1991 draft. My brother Delman Young was 1-1 in 2003. And my nephew Quentin, he's going to be in the 2025 draft, possibly in the first round. Perfect Game has him rated at number 3 right now for the 2025 class. So I knew a lot of them knew who he was, and I said my nephew Quentin, he'll be here next year. And then all of a sudden they went from that cocky I know it all to all of a sudden, they were listening, and there's really nothing to tell these guys except for the fact that they are getting ready to audition for the rest of their lives. So everything that your parents sacrificed for you, all those baseball trips, the blood, sweat, and tears, the I love this game to I'm quitting, I'm gonna go do something else. It all amassed to the moment that you go on the field and you're facing the guy throwing batting practice to you. What are you gonna do? And a lot of them really started opening up because they really were nervous. And I felt like I eased their mind just a little bit due to the fact that when I was back at the hotel, a lot of the kids came up to me and thanked me for just giving them some sound advice before going out there.
Isn't it amazing, D? We're getting to that age where, in a lot of those kids, you're right. You're getting. I remember going through it when I first retired, and I would be at some events with my father. And I grew up and it's Bob Boone, and he won 7 Gold Gloves, and I expect everybody to know him. And he was going into some camps, and they genuinely didn't know who Bob Boone was because they're so much younger than them. I was recently retired, so everybody knew who I was. But now we're getting to that age where you're right. I mean, at first glance, they're going, "Who are you?" Well, I'm Dimitri Young, and by the way, I could hit. but but you're right. These kids have no clue, and probably that day after you introduce yourself, were with them throughout the day. They half of them probably went and Googled your name, like, oh man, he could hit. He hit 300 5 times in the big leagues, and but that's where we're at. Do you try to put yourself back in that scenario? We didn't have combines back then, but try to put yourself back when you were 18 years old. Was there any advice now looking back you wish you would have got getting ready for that draft?
You know what? Just enjoy the process, really. Be ready to play every single day. Because in high school, you didn't play every day. You played 3 times a week. And I live out here in Southern California, where I played with George Genevieve on the weekend, played with Doug Deutsch during the week, and I was getting a lot of scout ball in a sense where I was getting a lot of at bats and stuff, and was used to playing every day. But there is a lot of kids that they only play a few times a week, or they'll go play in a weekend tournament and they're gassed. And it was like, well, how do you think those guys that you see on TV feel? They're playing 162 games, and they're playing in different weather, different temperature, different times. And it's from the time they step foot on the field in spring training, where they had a great generic conversation with everybody. Hey, how you doing? How's your all season? The family good? The kids good? All right. You do that 1,000 times, and then you go into the spring training games where you'll play a few innings. I think now these guys are seem like they're playing full games already. But we'll get ready during the course of spring training, and then we'll go up north, because I was always in Florida. And you're going to a cold climate place where now you have to make that adjustment to the cold, versus you're in spring training. It's sunny outside, the body feels good. Now you're going to a cold place, and you got to perform. They don't care that you can't adjust to the outdoor climate. It's something that you have to do every single day. And I got a chance to explain that to a bunch of kids that I coached last year. I was a manager in Mahoning Valley with the draft league last year. And for the first half, we had a bunch of the kids that were getting ready for the draft. And so the main thing was to just play them a full game unless they get thrown out or injured. So the scouts and the college recruits, because there was a lot of kids going through the transfer portal. And then the second half came around, and these were guys that no longer had eligibility, and or were guys that played indie ball, and that was treated as such. And a lot of these kids at the beginning, they were coming in wanting early work every single day. And I start looking at my watch, which I don't wear, and just kind of tapping my wrist, going, you're important between the start of the game, which was at 7, to the end of the game. Because all that work that you're doing before, if you can't perform during the game, you're useless. So all that eyewash going in at 2 o'clock, wanting early hitting, early pitching, and early defense. I mean, there's a time and place for all of it, but not every single day. Because all of a sudden now they're getting gassed, and it's like, dude, what happened, man? You keep coming. You were coming in early for the first 2 weeks, and now you're over here dragging feet.
Right. No, I mean, that's a great point too. And I think that's one of the huge differences from going to amateur baseball to professional baseball. Because for you, and I'll get to this a little bit later, because you came out of the draft at a high school. And there's a vast difference, I think, between being 18 and being 21, as far as your maturity, your mental maturity, your physical maturity. So, and we're going to discuss that in a little bit. But I watch these kids. High school season's like 30 games, D. A college season, which I went to college, and you bump it up to our full season was like 65, 68 games. If you play good, you get to go to a regional, and if you play really good, you get to go to the College World Series. But that's nothing compared to when you get pro ball. It's all right. Now it's 142 games, and you play every day. Now they've tweaked it a little bit, and they've got all this body and all this data on when you have a day off and if you're sleeping good. I get it, but you got to be prepared to be a man. And now this is you either produce or that number one pick will take you so far. It'll give you so much rope, but in the end, if you don't produce, on to the next guy. My thing is, sometimes we get caught up, and we were fortunate enough to have careers in this game and make a living at it. But sometimes I forget, and I need to be reminded of how tough this game really is. I've coached My kids coming up in the travel ball, and I was a rover with the Oakland A's one year, and I got to go see A ball and Double A and Triple A. I've got a son playing minor league baseball right now, and it kind of reminds me, when as a dad or as a coach, you're sitting there and you want to help these kids and like, just do this, and it's like, wait a minute. This game is really hard. And I've learned to have a different perspective, and it gives you, it shakes you once in a while and go, wait a minute. When you're getting frustrated at your kids or at players on your team, sometimes there's that moment where you go, wait a minute. All right, I was here. I remember this. This is really hard. And it gives you a little bit different of a perspective. I know you've done a lot of coaching in your day. High school, you just mentioned the league last year. You've been around kids a lot with your mentorship. Talk to a little bit about how hard this game really is, and sometimes even the guys that did it for a living, we gotta sit back and take that in.
Well, funny you say that because I do hitting lessons out of my dad's backyard. I live right across the street from him, and we built a nice batting cage and stuff. And I fight with the cage with him and my nephew, and then with my sister Deanne because she does softball. But when I get the kids in, especially when I'll just break it down a scenario that all right, I'm getting a new student that comes in. So let's say he's 12. We'll say he's 12 years old, and the first thing I do is I build a relationship with the kid. One by telling them who I am and what we're trying to accomplish. Number two, which I feel is very important, I talk to the parents about just being a parent as opposed to trying to coach them and be that helicopter dad that's hanging on the fence. Hey, come on, you need to swing at that or you're dipping. It's like you have to calm down because this is like a kid taking a test at school and he's not gonna. If a kid's doing his homework, is the house noisy or is it quiet? It's quiet. So the hardest thing to do in all sports is hit a baseball consistently. Yet you have somebody that's constantly in your ear yapping, you're doing this wrong, you're doing that wrong. So one, I tell the parents that they're gonna have to chill. I don't need a second coach. I don't need the kid looking back after every swing. Do you approve of that swing, Dad? Uh, We don't need any of that. We need to build the kid's confidence up because that's why he's here. And number two, what I like to do with the kids is find out who you are as a hitter. A lot of these kids, they might be 5'2", 77 pounds, 13 years old, trying that launch angle swing that they see on TV. And it's like, no, you have to have a nice line drive approach. You want to get hits and games. And I said, guess what? If you was to swing on plane and the ball happens to go in the air, hey, good for you. But you need to work on getting hits and games. And then if you get a big chunkier kid, you want to teach him how to be consistent. And you can give a little tweak there to catch the ball out in front. But a lot of it for me is building up the kid's confidence, making them love the game, fall in love with the game because what happens when you're going good, your confidence is built up. You perform well. But when you're sitting there thinking, trying to solve the Rubik's Cube in 4 seconds, your brain is scrambling, you're taking fastballs, you're swinging at balls in the dirt, you're not getting your breathing down properly. So those are the things that I like to work with the hitters. And then I tell the parents what I want you to do is have conversations with the kids based on what we talked about here. And usually the kid will go out there and they'll do some good and then they'll go back to old habits, but that's where the progression part of it comes from. And the parents want that instant, turn water into wine kind of scenario versus this is work in progress, step by step. Let the kid get better.
I agree with you because I've dealt with a lot of parents, and when I was doing the travel ball team, everybody wanted little Johnny to play short, hit third, fourth, and pitch. And if they weren't doing all, they move on to the next team. And it's like you got to realize at some point that they're kids, and that's exactly what they are. They're children. This game gets serious enough, as you know, soon enough. You get to be 16, 17, the real players start to separate themselves, the guys that are going to have an opportunity to go on to college or potentially be a draft pick. But when we're young and we're 12 and we're 13, you got to have fun at this game. We can't make this a full-time job for a 12-year-old. You gotta be able to go out, get some hits, have fun, go get a Slurpee, go get a soft pretzel, go
Yes.
chase girls, do whatever you do. Be a kid. Because let's look at the numbers, Dimitri. There's not too many kids that are going to make it at the highest level and make a living at this. Yet I feel a lot of the parents have these expectations when for a kid that comes to the Dmitri Young School of Hitting, your job is to, I don't know what I'm getting. Let me see the skill set here, but I want to try to you be the best you can be, whatever that skill set may be. Some are going to have a ton, some are going to have a little bit, but I want to make you the best. But at the end of the day, this is about enjoying the game. Because if you don't enjoy the game, you're done. Unless you're like a freaky
Yeah.
talent, you've got to be passionate about this game, but you got to enjoy it. And I just don't see a lot of kids enjoying it. I remember guys hanging on the fence, parents, and years later, I talked to those parents, and they said, "Well, maybe it wasn't the best way." I said, "You think?" I said, "These kids are going to resent you, Dimitri. I don't know about you, but I grew up in a baseball family. I got to play a long time in the big leagues, and some of my greatest, I got to go to All-Star games and World Series. Some of my favorite memories to this day are Little League. Oh, remember that championship game? Because I enjoyed it back then. It was like, just go play and enjoy yourself. Go get 4 hits and go have a pretzel instead of grinding on it. And I don't know if that happens so much in today's game. I think a lot of guys, you turn 20 and you're 25 years old and you're out there in the workforce. And a lot of guys don't have those memories. Like, remember on our 12-year-old team when we beat them in the state finals? I don't think they have that because it's from the get-go, people are taking it so serious. Like, I'm 10 and I got to go to the big leagues tomorrow. When really that's not only is it not reality, it's kind of nonsense. It's like, no, let's start at a base. Let's have a good time. Let's see if this is my sport. Let's see if I'm good enough to continue in this. But I think people nowadays, we just take things a little too serious.
Oh man, and I see that a lot with the kids because when they're that from 10 to about 13, that's the pizza and ice cream era. After a game, we're going to get pizza and ice cream. We're going to go get pizza. We're going to go hang out in the hotel room where you're supposed to have your clothes outside the hotel room by 8 o'clock so it can be washed. You still have 10 kids that are in the room playing video games, funky as God knows what, enjoying baseball.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden they get to high school and they get that all serious face like, I gotta make varsity. I gotta get a college scholarship. I need to commit somewhere. And it's like, hold on, when did this turn into a drama? First and foremost, I mean, this is supposed to be fun. And well, I gotta do this, I gotta do that. Are you enjoying yourself? And I mean, to your point, I have to tell them, you're working hard, but you got to enjoy this. And if you had a passion for it, this is not a sacrifice. Like not sacrificing your time because this is something that you want to do, and these are the necessary steps that you have to take. So, so if those kids are like that, I'm fine with that. If they just want to get a little bit better, I'm fine with that because I teach them that this is part of life skills that you're going through. When you go through the struggle, how are we going to find the success? And a lot of it has to do with them actually putting in effort. And that's a word that I try and get out of the kids because when I work with them in the cage, I challenge them every single time. I don't do the underhand flip, sound like Chubbs from Happy Gilmore. Yeah, good swing, good. No, I'm laughing at them. I'm chirping like the other team would chirp. I'm trying to get in their head. What are you gonna do during these circumstances? Are you going? Oh, he's talking crap. It's like a giant should never acknowledge a pissant. Period. And you're letting that little kid that's on the far side of the dugout whose uniform is going to be even cleaner after the game because he's not stepping on that field at all. So he wants to be a part of that team. What is he going to do? He's going to chirp and try and get in your head. And if you allow it, he won.
I think I don't know about you, but you talk about life lessons through sport, through baseball, without a doubt. And I learned a lot more life lessons, D, about getting my ass kicked, about going 0 for 15. a hell of a lot more than I learned from when I was on a run, and I was 10 for my last 15 with 3 homers. Those are great, and that's what we strive for. But a lot of the life lessons that I've learned in my life that humbled me were through getting my butt kicked and finding out after I get my butt kicked, all right, what do I need to do to get back on track? What do I need to learn? What adjustment do I have to make? That's where the life lessons come in that you talked about, and I think they're huge.
Yeah, they're very huge. It's important too because those aren't the things that the kids are even thinking about when they come over, when they first come over. And now I have a reputation to get the kids' minds right because the to me and we both had senior as a hitting coach, and he was a big believer that the mentals control your mechanics. If your mind is thinking about I want to pull the ball, you're gonna try and pull the ball versus let me stay through the middle and put my swing on it, and whatever happens is gonna happen. And so I quiz the kids at the very beginning when I first meet them. I say, "What's the strongest organ slash muscle in your body?" And of course they'll go legs, chest, arms. I'm like, wrong, wrong, and wrong. I said it's your brain. And the reason why it's your brain, because let's say your mom told you to clean up your room. You're either going to clean up your room or you're not. You're going to tell yourself you're going to do one or the other. So if you go up there to the plate and say, I'm going to get a hit, chances are you're going to put a better swing on it as opposed to going up to the plate. I don't want to strike out. Because now you put a negative thought in your head as you feel the worst possible thing that you can do at the plate versus let me go get a hit. Let me drive this run in. Let me help my team win. So also focus on the positive mind frame and having that mindset of doing something positive to help the team.